Thank you.
Tell us about this wonderful panel you put together and these lovely speakers you have with us.
I thought of bringing a panel unlike any other panel I've been through, a group of highly competent, highly experienced individual upon which the mix is super interesting, especially in the field of sustaining family businesses. So you have a beautiful mix of a lot of expertise, both. Most of them are actually academics and practitioners at the same time. So they run businesses, they monetize businesses, they run family offices, and they continue to advise and help family offices. So I thought that kind of a mix would make an interesting panel. For people to hear not only a lot of misconceptions that we hear about all the time. When you talk about family businesses, all discussions go towards either governance or sustainability, or a lot of discussions go into family businesses being on the decline, whereby the absolute the opposite is the truth, both academically and in practice. So I'm changing the tone really, from seeing this as a negative to actually seeing it as a positive aspect. So I'll talk about the positivity of family businesses and how they are impacting in a beautiful way the economies they function within and the communities they serve.
Why is it important to also bring in the academia part of it?
Once you are a researcher, you're always a researcher, because you just don't take things for granted. You don't just hear people's opinion and you take it as a truth. There are mechanics to validate and verify information, and hence the academic hat always adds value and definitely brings a higher level of confidence to the listeners, to whoever is to leverage of such knowledge when it has some academic basis. So practice is definitely a very important aspect, but academia has an equal weight, in my opinion.
Well, talking about academia, Professor, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience and share your expertise?
Thank you. So my name is Fatima Jamali. I'm the Dean of the College of Business at the University of Sharjah. And I'm a friend of all the panelists here. It's an honor. Very pleased to be with you, Vanessa, also today. And, they asked me to come on this panel, and I wanted to share a different perspective. I totally agree with Mr. Adil about the immense potential of family businesses, especially in this region. But I do see more of a need for family businesses to be purpose-driven and to focus on their legacy and their impact for future generations and for the community. I think that our focus is tilted. We're a lot still very classical in our approach, focusing on profits and our differentiation in terms of markets or in terms of branding, but not enough in terms of what kind of legacy we want to leave. And I'd like to see more family businesses differentiating themselves through their mission and their purpose and being known for what they've done in terms of talent management that is unique, or what they've done in terms of climate action that is unique, or in terms of women empowerment and youth empowerment. This is my message today, and I think this is critical for sustaining a healthy family business ecosystem.
That's a lovely point. And taking on that point with talent management, what are your thoughts about talent management?
Okay.
I think talent management has been a challenge for quite some time. This is something, from my professional background, this is something was a huge challenge, because looking for the right talent for the right jobs has always been a predicament, particularly for the certain jobs you want to do. So it depending on the size of economy you are at and the cycle of economy, you actually attract a certain people, particularly from the leadership roles. So for example, if you have a company which is actually requiring somebody to salvage, it's not everything at all. You need to have a respective CEO who knows how to bring the company up and take them over. So one of the things we used to do back in my professional organization earlier when I was working at Citigroup, We always hunted talents from various universities globally. So we went to various parts of the world, and we went to those who are MBA graduates and actually invited them over after interviewing them and bring them over to Citibank. And we had a very interesting program called MADFQ, which is the Management Associate Program, which is for 2 years, where we actually put you on a leadership role for every 6 months in a country, and we give you a project, and then you actually make sure that these projects are executed on ground. So we see how well you're doing, and then at the end of the day, at the 6 months, there'll be a panel which will be interviewing you to see how well you did with the project. Those who actually succeed the first 6 months will go to the next 6 months, and those who do not, either they actually get consumed because they still have people, either they get consumed in a day-to-day job or another job which is available within the organization, or they continue with the next things. And through this program, many leaders came up, and many of them today actually MPs for large banks in the countries, MPs and chairmen for large government organization, private organization. So there was actually a development. Interestingly, I also look after, as a passionate in education, I was telling Adil, I sit as a governor's board chairman of a couple of schools. So I think what I'm trying to do is, how do we inculcate this, which the previous panel were talking about from the education system? You cannot create leaders after they graduated and after you have tainted them with a lot of things. You actually need to start from, honestly speaking, from as young they are. So those are the things we're trying to do as well.
That's a great point, which I would like to maybe expand a little bit. What are your thoughts about training family offices, the next gen, and how soon should they start, and what kind of training should they be exposed to?
Sure. This is a very wide topic. I think the first thing I believe in what we need to do is to understand and have clarity with the family offices, what exactly they want to do. Of course, most of the family offices want to preserve and continue. However, it's very important to see how do we have the right governance in place, first of all, and for them to progress from one generation to the next generation. Once we actually set that, then we set the goal of who's going to be leading the businesses. So for example, in the family office I advise, and I sit as an independent board, we actually said we would not have any of the third generation running the businesses. And that's a conscious call we've taken just to make sure there is no challenges in the future. But they would sit on the board in that perspective. So you created demarcation what you want to do. So it's very important to understand what does the family want today and how can you sustain it and make it happen. So one of the programs we're launching today is how do we make sure that they further what you call carrying on with education, higher education, and also how to couple it with existing knowledge that we can provide on one-to-one. Exactly to what one of the gentlemen in the previous organization, previous president has mentioned, is how do we mentorship? Mentorship is very, very important, which you cannot get, what you call, from education alone. You have to make sure that you have bring in practical experience and teach them through. So they shadow you, and that's very important.
And moving to our last speaker, you're an advisor to many family offices. I mean, how do you sort of, you see the flaws, the issues that families have within themselves or within their group? How is sort of the human aspect of the families such a key driver to their financial success?
Yeah, this is a critical point, especially in this region. Historically, our culture emphasized collectivity and risk averse. So it was easier for family businesses 50 years ago to be united because that's part of our strong cultural values. As we are progressing and as our grandchildren are taking over these businesses, they are more individualistic. And as such, the family unity is not seen as important as it used to, or it doesn't manifest itself in the same way as family unity in business as it used to. So a family-owned business is there to do two things: sustain the business, but sustain the family. And now the challenge is across generations as well as mentioned. You need to bring in very early on generation excellence, and you need to bring in the decision of managing the wealth management, the family office, the future of the business, so that you don't reach a point where there's a major disconnect and there's a risk of disintegrating the family businesses. Now, few innovative family offices are starting the idea of endowment, family endowment, which is part of the wealth management. In Arabic, we call it waqf zirrik. It's the equivalent as close as you can get to a trust fund. But it's a family trust fund separate from the wealth management of the family office. so that it sustains its specific objectives. For example, free education or college education will be paid from this endowment, no matter to any son or daughter from this family. And so it will be endowed from the beginning, and it will continue to be endowed from the profits of the family businesses, so that they ensure that future generation has a level playing field in terms of access to education within the family. Now the endowment will be probably following Islamic Sharia, so it's easier to structure it in different ways. So there are innovations in this part of the world. Of course, wealth management is the same as principles, but here we have the issue of cultural values that we need to adjust, and we have the issues of Islamic Sharia we need to factor in, and we have the other issue. Our families are much bigger than typical Western families. So while you might see 2 or 3 children in a Western family in a family office, here we are talking, assuming it's a one-wife situation, we are still talking about 8 children. Add to it a couple of generations now, and remember, in this part of the world, we marry young. So by about 24, most people have their first child. By about 40, their grandchildren. And by about even 60, you are talking about even a certain level. So here things are complicated. The nice thing about the future generations, they are committed to sustainability, they are committed to legacy, they are committed to social impact investment. While maybe before it was only about preserving the family wealth, now it's about having an impact on the community.
I have a last question to all of you, and starting with you then. So what are your thoughts, or what guidance would you give to families to ensure that by the 3rd generation it doesn't fall to bits and pieces, because that often happens in the rest of the world? What are your thoughts, and what guidance would you give?
We have to start with the assumption that there will be a conflict. So it's like when you learn how to ride a bike, you will fall. So there will be a conflict. The issue is to structure the mechanism of dealing with this conflict in such a way. In the older family offices, and I worked with several, as I said, one was founded in 1905, one was in 1922. So you had the family patriarch, or even the family matriarch, who will bring everybody together. But increasingly, there is no so-called proper, without historical respect of solving the problem. So you need a process-oriented system, and you need to put it in place before the problem happens, so that when it happens, it's a matter of taking the manual and working with it to address it, via different exits for some of the family members, via a family general assembly, via an internal family arbitration board with independent people. But you need to have that all in place so that when the next conflict happens, and for sure it will happen, they have a way of addressing it that doesn't disintegrate the family and the business. So you'll end up with neither. Well, the objective of family-owned business is to support both the business and the family.
And your thoughts about protecting and making sure the 3rd generation doesn't?
Sure. I think the doctor really sums it all. But to add to that, slightly in a different spin, as you was mentioning, that there's always a magnet, I call it, a person who actually brings everybody together. Once the magnet is off, everything's falling apart. So it's very important that we need to make sure that we have the right governance in place, which is established and tested and tried over a period of time. So it's a matter of time making sure that it's happening now, rather than very late, because you're practicing it, make sure it's part of your DNA and regime. So not only the 3rd generation witnessing it, but also the coming generation, the kids will also be seeing it. So it becomes slowly solidified our regime. For this to stay, apart from the governance, is the well-being of all together, making sure that we have unity and alignment of purpose. If alignment of purpose is not there, no governance will hold it in that case. And those are the 2 key factors we make it happen.
Dr. Adil?
Thank you. So to echo the same message as my colleagues and to take it from Maher, I always emphasize the importance of letting the family members know that this is not a forced relationship. Your money is your money. You have the right. You have rights to your money. If you want to take it, there should be a mechanism for them to take their money out. So instead of resisting their, many times you hear it amongst a lot of, especially when it comes to governments, you hear it on how to not allow them to take their money out. I am pro the opposite. You need to give them comfort that their money is their money, but there's a reason why it's together. So advocate for the importance and the benefits of keeping that money together the strength, why is it strong to keep that money together? You have can leverage cost of debt, you can get exposed to deals, exclusive deals, you can back a business for a long time. So there are benefits of keeping money together. And there is a benefit of carrying a brand name that everybody can leverage off in the family. So advocating that and giving them the comfort that they still have the right on their money solves a lot of misconceptions and potentially solves a lot of unnecessary conflicts within the family, especially down the line when their kids think that they are smarter than the older generation and all of that. So once that piece of communication is handled, it gives, in my unqualified opinion, gives a lot of comfort and you can enhance communication.
Professor?
So I would agree with all of the comments, and especially the 2 points on excellent governance and succession planning. Very important. And there is a recent Deloitte report that shows that family businesses that had very good governance practices in place, they did much better during COVID crisis in terms of coping because they had mechanisms in place to alleviate risks. The other part is the purpose. This is exactly what Maher said. And I think having a larger purpose will give meaning to the family and something to work together for. So it's likely to keep the family business coherent and to want together. So those 2 key points, exactly like Maher, but with a bit of a twist and elaboration. Thank you.
I wish this panel could go on and on. I've really enjoyed it, Dr. Adil. And again, apologies for being a little late, and thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
It was our pleasure.